Hi, guys. So I'm getting out of my comfort zone a little bit. Have patience with me. This is my first live where I actually speak. So this should be fun, or it'll be a dumpster fire, or it could be both. Who knows? But let's get started. A victim came forward and she contacted me and asked me if I would go over this St. Louis Post-Dispatch article they came out with today. It's very important. There are several victims here. And these two men, allegedly, everything that I say here is allegedly, and in my opinion, of course. At the end, I will give these two men, an opportunity to email me whatever they need to do to contact me, and we'll talk about it. And maybe they will come up on panel one day and tell their side. But until then, we're going to go ahead and go with the victim side, of course. So let's go ahead and get started. They walked away from a Missouri cult. Now they're warning anyone who will listen. The Bonne Terre cult. Festus, a small white church with a red door, sits in an old neighborhood by the railroad tracks here. It's just a few blocks north of the bars, restaurants, and shops that line East Main Street. Faith groups have called the building home since the 1930s. Last year, a nonprofit bought it. A sign soon appeared outside St. Sophia's Incandescent, I probably said that wrong, Orthodox Church. It's a cute little church. I think it would be a really good little family church for someone. Obviously not this thing they have going on here that absolutely no one really knows what goes on inside there, but we'll continue. St. Sophia's Orthodox Church at the corner of Moore and Gray Streets in Festus. The nonprofit is run by Anthony Merciel, a 38-year-old Festus resident who has for more than 2 decades led what he and some other former followers have called cults. Excuse me. And his reemerge in this town of 13,000, along with the Mississippi River, 34 miles south of St. Louis, is making those former followers nervous. Over here to the right, you see, here's a picture of him, Anthony Merciel in his collar, sometime between 2010 2014. They're worried Merciel's following might grow, and several have begun to act. They've lodged complaints with the local police departments. They've contacted an attorney, They've contacted an attorney who specializes in suing cults. One former follower, Brandis Huffman, launched a social media campaign to try to stop Merciel from recruiting members. I need more victims to come forward, Huffman wrote on a Facebook page she started in April. Even if you think too much time has passed or that your story is too small. Since at least 2004, Merciel has collected small groups of followers in Bonne Terre, Farmington, and now Festus. According to 11 former members interviewed by the Post-Dispatch, he is charismatic, mesmerizing, and manipulative. He creates a belief system that draws from Christianity, Judaism, magic, fantasy, and the supernatural. Members, for example, say they were told they were dragons in past lives. Oh, goodness. That God sent Merciel as an angel to build an army to fight in Armageddon. That Merciel is a priest, part of the whole worldwide order of divine prophets, and has existed for thousands of years. And that St. Francis State Park was the site of sacred city ruled by the Order of the White Robe, the name of one of his groups. We'll get into that later. The Order of the White Robe. Ex-followers say Merciel uses these doctrines to manipulate people financially, socially, and sometimes sexually. Merciel didn't respond to multiple attempts to reach him, but criminal defense attorney Richard Lozano, who said he represents Merciel, said Merciel is aware of the accusations, denies wrongdoing, and has no interest in litigating these accusations in the media. Over to the left, Brandis Huffman recounts her involvement in the Bonne Terre cult during an interview at her home outside of Bonne Terre on Tuesday, July 11th, 2024. The Congregation of St. Sophia's is a small group united by God, community, and a desire to make the world a better place, the group said in an email. We are affirming church and believe that everyone is deserving of love no matter what their background is, who they love, or how they identify. We respect the inherent dignity and free will of human beings and welcome anyone to engage with our church friendly and in spirit of shared respect. Merciel hasn't been charged with any crimes. There are no pending lawsuits. Wow. I'll read that again. Merciel hasn't been charged with any crimes. There are no pending lawsuits. Wow. Former followers have contacted various law enforcement agencies. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Department didn't respond to requests for comment. The Missouri Attorney General's office told Huffman it was elected to not take any action at this time. In St. Francis County, a sheriff's lieutenant said he couldn't find evidence of an investigation by the office. Well, where did that go? Even an international attorney known as the cult assassin said she couldn't help. It's nearly impossible to sue a spiritual leader with clear evidence of wrongdoing in a country that protects religious freedom. Carol Murchison, who's based in New Jersey and specializes in lawsuits against cults. But it's clear, she said, that cults can hurt people and sometimes ruin lives. Sometimes. But it's clear, she said, that cults can hurt people and sometimes ruin lives. Well, I've spoke with a couple of victims that allegedly these two have ruined their lives. It takes their childhoods, their adulthoods, Murchison said. Who is Anthony Merciel? Merciel grew up around Bonne Terre, a city of 6,600 in southeastern Missouri, and went to high school there. He graduated in 2003. Many kids at the school were poor and raised in strict religious households, says Hannah Waller, a former Merciel follower who now lives in Fenton. Waller remembers several churches starting up in the area in the early 2000s. Merciel's efforts didn't seem unusual. It wasn't alarming to anyone, Waller said. People are looking for something to give them a sense of worth, a sense of belonging. Merciel doesn't have much of a footprint in public records or online. Jefferson County records don't show him owning a car or a home. In St. Francis County, an Anthony J. Merciel has owned a Dodge Ram truck, a Dodge Dart, and a home on Louise Street in Bonne Terre. Over the years, he has lived in apartments and at least twice in homes owned by his followers. He has held services in homes, a banquet hall, an old funeral home, and now for the first time, a church building. Merciel is gifted with computers, former followers said. And in 2017, his wife, Kayla Bertram, started a business called Next Era Technologies, a dormant social media account for the business, advertises web and software development services and logo design. In 2021, Merciel and Bertram started Simple Software Solutions, offering a development plus marketing and tech support. Today, he lives in a 2-story house near South Adams Park in Festus with at least 3 followers. In some videos on YouTube, he appears in a priest's collar. Well, he does appear in a priest's collar. In my past videos, it's just a picture. It does show him and Adam both in their priest collars. The main part of this for me is we really have to protect these victims. Like I said, this is allegedly, but this is a St. Louis Post-Dispatch article, and I have spoke with at least one of his victims, and this is bigger than I would have ever imagined it be. I'm from a small town, and this could be right in my neighborhood, or it could be in yours, and our youth are the ones that are going to pay for this. Let's move on. The Dragon Ball Z cult. Nice. What's next? Pokemon? Anyway, Alessa Fenris was the new kid at North County High in Bonne Terre in 2003. A 14-year-old freshman was interested in learning martial arts. A friend told her Merciel, who had just graduated, could teach her. Merciel, almost 18, knew the basics of martial arts, Fenris said, and she learned some in weekly trainings. Ooh, so they teach martial arts. It wasn't long before Anthony started making claims he was the chosen one, the right hand of God, meant to train people to fight in the apocalypse. At that time, it honestly felt more like a game, she says. That's terrible. Oh, she's so pretty. I'm glad she got away. Brandis Huffman holds a drawing of the white dragon that she pulled from a suitcase of memorabilia from her time in the Von Terre cult that she keeps at her home outside Von Terre on Thursday, July 11th, 2024. Another member of the Von Terre cult made the drawing and gave it to her because cult members believed Huffman was the white dragon with special powers. Oh my. Okay. Other kids in school called them the Dragon Ball Z cult after a popular Japanese anime series because its members believed in manipulating energy like the show's characters. It sounded childish, Fenris said, like kids pretending to be cartoon characters, but being a member was intense. Fenris and other members, no more than a handful at the time, were expected to participate in weekly trainings to prepare for the apocalypse. Sometimes they'd watch movies or participate in role-playing games. Otherwise, they do strength and speed training. Think very military, said former follower Tabitha Dipple Brown, who attended North County High. I probably said that wrong. Dipple or Dippel Brown, sorry, I got your name wrong. If you're listening, recalled going to a mound of mining waste called a chat dump outside Von Terre in the middle of the night. I've been there, actually. They practiced training poses and stances while Merciel screamed orders. If anyone made a mistake, they'd have to run laps. Oh, hell no, I ain't doing that. Anyway, once Dippel Brown said Merciel made her fight a friend. Every time one landed a hit, the other one would have to remove an article of clothing. Wow. I guess he played spin the bottle, too. Nice. I didn't last very long, she said. I gave up when I was stripped down to my bra and underwear. I was forced to kneel in the dirt, and it was freezing for what felt like hours while the others fought. Oh, my goodness. Wow. During another training in the summer of 2004, Fenris vomited and blacked out running relays. She dropped out after the incident. After she left, two 14-year-olds joined. Fenris had a crush on one of the 14-year-olds and was friends with the other. In the hopes of drawing them away from Merciel, Fenris rejoined in the fall of 2004. By then, Merciel had taken the younger of the two teenagers as his so-called wife. Wow, wait. Fenris had a crush on one of the 14-year-olds, so let me make sure I'm reading this correctly. By then, Merciel had taken the younger of the two teenagers as his so-called wife. So she was 14. Merciel was going on 19 then, more than 4 years older than the teen. What's up with that, Merciel? Allegedly. Another member had taken the other teenager, about 3 years younger than him, as his wife. Y'all can't get grown women? Allegedly, of course. Let's continue. The two teens, who were in their mid-30s now, confirmed Fenris' account in recent interviews with the Post-Dispatch. Neither teen reported wrongdoing to the police. No, they were scared. Of course they didn't. An army of warriors. Huffman met Merciel at a friend's house in Von Terre after her junior prom in 2006 when she was 17. Merciel drew her outside. It was raining, so they stood under the house's front overhang. Merciel told her God sent him the night to find her. She said and that she was destined to be a part of his divine secret order. Wow. Goodness. Huffman grew up in a one-story house surrounded by farmland just outside Von Terre. She was raised in a conservative Pentecostal church. When she met Merciel, she said he made her feel special and loved. He gave her hope and she could be part of the chosen people when the world ended. I had been primed my whole life by my family to believe I was meant to be a part of God's warriors. And so when this man said he was literally creating an army of warriors, sign me up, said Huffman, now 35 and living in Bonne Terre. After the next few months, Huffman recalled Merciel revealed that he had 7 dragon spirits inside him and was destined to find other dragons in their human form. He then built an army of 700,000 to 100,000 soldiers per dragon spirit and fight Satan and his demons in Armageddon. Alrighty then. Okay. I was still high in high school. Sorry, I read that completely wrong. I was still in high school and I had a job, Huffman said, but he slowly wormed his way to put a stop to all of those things. My family was the first to be cut off. I was not allowed to have any other friends outside of the cult members. Huffman's responsibility was to find ways to get the wives, who were 16 by the time. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Huffman's responsibility was to find ways to get the wives, who were 16 by the time Huffman joined, to Merciel's apartment on South Division Street in Bonne Terre, where the group you lost my place. Sorry. Huffman's responsibility was to find ways to get the wives, who were 16 by the time Huffman joined, to Merciel's apartment on South Division Street in Bonne Terre, where the group mostly met. Huffman would pick them up, and all 3 would lie to their parents and say they were spending the night at each other's houses. In 2007, Merciel took Huffman, then 18, as his second so-called wife. Oh, so he gets several wives. Nice, okay. Huffman had to hand over her paychecks to support the group. She said, and Merciel appointed her to serve on his tribunals, where people who broke his rules were sentenced to punishment. Sometimes for punishment, Merciel would cut the end of a leather belt and unbraid it before lashing people on their bare backs. A breaking point came this following year. On the night of June 2nd, 2008, Merciel and other members were at his home when a window suddenly broke, according to a Bonne Terre police report written by Officer Chad Brown. I've seen that name, Chad Brown, on several of the Facebook posts of victims that have came forward. And on one of his little comments on their post, it said he was one of the arresting officers that had arrested these 2 before, or at least one of them, if I'm not mistaken. But there's a screenshot of it. I actually have it that says that they are very dangerous. So I'm sure if anybody knows, it's definitely this guy. They thought a former member had done it. Merciel and 2 other members drove to the man's house and confronted him. Merciel held a knife to the man's throat, threatened to kill him, and cut the man's hand in a struggle for the weapon, the police report said. The former member called police at 10 p.m., and Officer Brown later questioned Merciel. Merciel asked the officer if he knew who he was. Why would he? Anyway, he then informed me he was the leader of the Bonne Terre cult. Brown wrote in his report, he said he had Bibles and preached to God. I told him I just needed to know what happened that night. Merciel pleaded guilty to second-degree assault, was sentenced to serve a few weeks in jail, and placed on 5 years probation. His followers began dropping after that. By 2010, Huffman was one of only 3 members left. She stayed for 4 more years before the Celestial Dragon Council died. I was pretty empty. Around 2014, when Huffman was leaving the group, 19-year-old Matt Cerruti, sorry if I mispronounced that wrong, returned home to Farmington from a brief stint in the Marines. Cerruti was raised in a conservative Christian home. His grandfather was a well-known pastor in the community. Cerruti, now 29 and living in Alabama, said he had a sheltered childhood. Most of his friends were gone when he came home, except for the one who was hanging out with Merciel. Cerruti was lonely and aimless. I was pretty empty, Cerruti said. Merciel befriended him, and Cerruti joined the Order of the Seven Thunders, Merciel's newest group then in 2015. There were at least 7 members. Merciel rented an old funeral home in Bonne Terre for meetings. In March that year, Circutti and Merciel had a run-in with police in Farmington where Circutti lived. Officer Richard Baker received a call from a reporter with the Daily Journal, a newspaper in nearby Park Hills. Around these small towns, I mean, honestly, I have always lived in a small town. It is very common to be sheltered or to be raised in a Christian home, whether it be one religion to another. But I never can remember anyone I know that had been in a cult. But it is common to live little sheltered home, sheltered lives with Christian families for sure. The reporter told him she had spoken with a woman who said she had been in a cult and that Circutti was harassing and threatening her, according to the officer's report. A 19-year-old woman and Circutti, 20, previously lived together as roommates. And during that time, they were involved in a cult of some sort called the Order. Baker wrote in his report, the cult required the women to sign a contract agreeing not to talk about the group. Just a heads up, guys. If you are going to be a part of a church or anything that you think is religious, you should never have to sign a contract agreeing not to talk about the group. That's crazy. That's very odd. When she threatened to go to the newspaper about the cult, she was threatened. A few days later, Baker spoke with Circutti and told him the group wasn't called the Order. They called it the New Christian Calling Church. Circutti told the officer he never observed illegal activity at the church and that the pastor was Bishop Anthony Merciel. Later that day, the officer contacted Merciel. They met at his church in Bonne Terre, a former funeral home, and Merciel gave the officer a tour. I asked Mr. Merciel about the allegations of the church being a cult, targeting young adults and requiring members to sign a contract, Baker wrote in the report. Merciel acknowledged having members sign a contract for privacy reasons, but said he didn't target young adults and that the church was orthodox. Baker then told Merciel not to have any additional contact with the woman. He was happy with her going to the newspaper, Baker wrote. The case was closed. I decided no more. Aaron Jefferson of O'Fallon, Illinois, has always been interested in supernatural beliefs. During the social isolation during the big C word, he decided to look online for how other people with similar interests were handling the pandemic. As you see, we see him. I guess this is maybe an altar that he is sitting at. You can see, we have Jesus over here, some candles. Looks like a little altar. Aaron Jefferson of O'Fallon prays at an altar in his home in O'Fallon, Illinois, on Thursday, July 25th, 2024. He is a former member of the Bonne Terre cult and is now exploring his faith at St. Michael, the Orthodox Church in St. Louis. He regularly attends church and prays at home at his altar. Okay, that is an altar. Jefferson found the Order of the White Robe and filled out an application to join. He had a video call with Merciel a week later and joined in August that year. He started with weekly online classes about philosophy and religion. He paid $25 per month plus a $50 annual fee. Goodness. It felt good to connect with others, he said. I'm sure they really liked it with the big C word because then they could get everyone stuck in their homes. This is awful. In the spring of 2021, the group began meeting in person. Jefferson said, Merciel could talk for hours on any given subject and sounded like an expert. There were between 20 and 30 members who took part. At retreats twice a year in rural Missouri, Merciel would deliver prophecies. Merciel told Jefferson, who was engaged at the time to a woman outside the group, that he had to leave his fiancée if he wanted to advance in the order. Jefferson stayed with his fiancée, but was regularly giving money to the group. He estimates he spent $2,000 over 4 years. What do they need all this money for? Last year, a member donated $200,000 to Merciel to buy a church building. Jefferson said that the donor told him. The donor did not respond to requests for comment for this story. The building at Gray and Moore Streets in Festus sold on August 25th last year for $199,000, according to property records. Goodness. Merciel planned to use the Red Door Church to hold services open to the public where he would recruit members. Now, when I talk about him recruiting members, this goes all the way back to the first post that I saw on Facebook that got me interested in this. One of their victims had come forward and tried her hardest to get people to understand how bad they were, because they were going to set up it was a picnic at the park for the eclipse. And they had their own little table so that they could try to recruit. And I'm sure they were trying to recruit the younger youth to join them. It seems like these older people have figured out what's going on here. So they have to prey on these young ones, which is very sad because they're going into small towns, people let their children do, like at county fairs, they let their kids walk around 13, 14 years old. And this is normal around this area. But now with all of this, I really hope this brings attention and more parents at least could see how dangerous that is, especially this could be anywhere. This doesn't have to be right there in Bonne Terre or in Festus, Missouri. This could be in your backyard, in mine. It's very alarming. It is. Jerrison said the final straw came when Merciel and another member began planning a sexual ritual in attempt to exorcise the members' demons. That night, I decided no more. I was going to do whatever I could to put a stop to it. Good for you, Jerrison. They say they need our help. Now, years later, the former followers all say they have lingering scars. Fenris, the teen from Bonne Terre, dropped out of school in 2007. She joined the military, but had to drop out of that too because she couldn't deal with the physical training. She struggled to hold down jobs. She got married twice. She had 2 kids, but the marriages both failed. For years, she has relied on government disability payments to support herself and make child support payments. I've been working on my mental health, she says, for the last decade, trying to unpack everything that's happened to me in my life. Cerruti, the former Marine from Farmington, faced a rape charge in 2017, which was later dropped. The year and 8 days he spent in jail allowed him to distance himself from Merciel. It literally took that before he could let me go, that he would let me go. Cerruti moved to Alabama. He works there as a furniture salesman and cares for his grandmother. He's gotten married and he's thinking about having kids. I hope he does. Huffman said she left Merciel after he kicked a laptop into her face in 2014. She packed her things and fled to the only friend she had left on the outside. When I left, I thought I destroyed him, Huffman said. The funding was coming from me, the ability to manage and organize. I thought he was done. Within a year, she met a man, got married, and moved to Colorado. She changed phone numbers, but just in case, she texted her old number. She asked the new owner to let her know if anyone ever reached out for asking for help. She struggled to hold down a job and constantly felt stressed. But when her father-in-law became seriously ill, she and her husband moved back to Bonne Terre into her childhood home. She took up vegetable gardening and keeping chickens. Then on March 21st, Huffman received a text from her old phone number. They say they need your help with something about a former associate you knew in Missouri, the text said. It was Jerrison. He wanted to talk about Merciel. Within a few weeks, Jerrison and Huffman have teamed up. On April 7th, Huffman posted her first warning on the Facebook page. If you were a part of their scheme, she wrote, please come forward. She continued posting daily and began messaging people she believed to be former followers. A private Facebook group she created has now about 24 members. Jerrison reached out to a reporter in Festus on April 18th. The Jefferson County Leader newspaper posted a story about Merciel and his group. They now feel media attention be the only way to spread their message. I do want to save people from falling for him, Huffman said, but I also want to save the people that already fell for him. Wow, the strength. That takes a lot of strength. It's good to see her smile. Brandis Huffman holds one of her chickens at her home outside of Bonne Terre on Thursday, July 11th, 2024. Huffman has dozens of chickens at her home, and she says it helps her as she continues to heal emotionally from her time in the Bon Terre cult that was led by Anthony Merciel. Oh, goodness. Brandis Huffman displays Facebook messages at her home outside of Bon Terre on Thursday, July 11th. Huffman is part of a group or former cult member who has set up a group to help current members of the cult get out. She says the messages are from someone who is possibly still in Bon Terre. Oh, no. Aaron Jerrison of O'Fallon at his home in O'Fallon, photographed on Wednesday, July 10th. Jerrison is a former member of the Bon Terre cult who is now speaking out about problems he sees with the cult. Anthony Merciel, left in Brandis Huffman, is an updated photo from when Huffman was a member of the Bon Terre cult. Wow. All right. Well, these victims are very strong, and I think I don't really have to tell you guys that. Just from reading that, you can see their strength. But they're not the only ones. There are so many people right now that are afraid to come forward. So I went through this, and like I said, this is my first live where I'm speaking, and I appreciate you all listening, watching. So many prayers for the victims. They have so much strength now to come forward. I hope they really do get some kind of justice in some way. And if you have young children, just remember, this guy right here, he looks like the average Joe, an average guy. You'd see him at the county fair. If you look behind this picture, I think he is at maybe Six Flags or some amusement park. But think of where they're at, even in that picture. Children love amusement parks. Children love fairs, parks. And this is all places that they have got. They went to these places to get their victims. It's very, very scary. If I had said any of the names wrong in this article, I apologize. I do apologize. I don't mean it out of any way to be disrespectful. Everything I've said in this video, of course, is alleged. But if you, Mr. Merciel, I'm going to give you your chance. If you want to contact me, my email is doodlebugfartyt for YouTube @gmail.com, all lowercase. Email me if you want to say your side of the story. But from what I see here and from what I've read, I'm sure he will not contact me. But everything is alleged, and I want to thank every one of you for being here and dealing with my voice. I know my anxiety got the best of me, but hey, first live said and done. So I have to thank all of you for being here. Have a wonderful evening, and God bless. Good night.